Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. Joining me is General Ravi Shankar, and this is part 2 or episode 2 of a series of episodes that we are going to be talking today. General Ravi Shankar, Namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskar and thanks a lot, Mr. Sri Iyer, for inviting me over for this talk. It's always a pleasure to do a face-to-face discussion. Let's start.
General Ravi Shankar, AFSPA.
AFSPA.
This was, I think, brought in a few years ago, maybe a couple of decades ago. It doesn't matter when it was brought in. Beyond what is happening in terms of army usually gets called in when things are threatening to get out of control. There is some perception that perhaps the law and order is not up to it. And then they say, okay, here is a more neutral thinking body that comes in. In your experience, you probably saw a few of those things. Kashmir is one place where AFSPA has been enforced. What is the trigger that convinces the government that, look, we need to bring in the army under, or we should, is it like first you bring the army, then give them the powers, or how does it go?
Okay. Look, AFSPA is Armed Forces Special Powers Act.
Oh, Special Powers Act.
It's an act of the Government of India, right? It's enacted. The reason to enact it, one has to understand. You know, whenever you bring the armed forces into a disturbed area, and you need the armed forces in the help of civil authorities, there are two methods normally of doing so. Normally, if the disturbance is local and there's a problem, it could be disaster also. So the local authorities requisition the armed forces and they say, you come. That's in aid of civil authority. That's a standard procedure. And then the army responds. But then you're guided completely by what the civil administration wants you to do. It could be to even control riots and all that. With that, there are certain provisos, right? Whenever you generally carry out operations under aid to civil authority, you normally take a civil magistrate along with you, a few police people along with you, because you're showing force, especially for flag marches or quell riots and things like that. There are methods. And the moment things are under control, the army de-requisitions you and you go back. I mean, the civil administration de-requisitions you and you go back. The second is, people are called, the army is requisitioned. And when the disturbances are wider. Now, you have to understand, say a state like Punjab or J&K, or for that matter, the northeast states, at Manipur at some point of time, or Assam, they were under a grip of violence and insurgency, and the situation was clearly beyond the state administration and the police, because a lot of external influences were also there. Then the army is called out. Now, if the army is called out to handle such situations, not always can you send a magistrate along with the army, right? And things like that. So the army has to be enabled. And that enablement is given through the Armed Forces Special Power Act to the army. Because the army doesn't have the powers, judicial powers of either the judiciary or the police, or the arrest powers of the police. Police is mandated by the government to do certain things, the state and the center. So the army doesn't have those. So the army has to be enabled. So what does the enablement involve? Enablement involves a few fundamental things. One is that you can carry out a search operation. You can arrest a person with the proviso that you can keep him. After a particular time period, you have to hand over the case. You can't keep him forever. So you can arrest without an arrest warrant. But after you arrest, within 48 hours, you have to hand him over to the police, so that the police takes over the case and does everything. Then the next thing is, it doesn't give you immunity, but suppose something happens, there's a complaint against armed forces personnel, the complaint can be given to the state and the central government, and then the central government takes a call whether to proceed against that person in the army or whatever. So it gives you a certain amount of protection from getting involved in state related cases. For example, if I'm operating in, say, Manipur, and tomorrow someone files a case against me by name in Manipur, if this protection was not there, then for the rest of my life I have to keep going to Manipur to face that case. Then it becomes personal to me. Whereas what I'm doing there is not personal to me. I'm going there because the state has asked me to go there and quell the situation or resolve the situation. So the state has to protect me. I have no personal interest in that case. If something has happened, it has happened. Right? And it is for the state to say, okay, well, whether it was how I was motivated or not, or should I face the due process of the law as an individual or as a whole. So, thereafter the government says, okay, we will take this case, investigate the case, and then decide whether this person XYZ or the unit XYZ can face the courts. So, I am absolved, or rather I am protected against being personally verified. Because this is a normal tactic with local people. They'll put a case against you. The moment there's a case against me, which I know I have to face throughout my life, I'll not do anything. It negates the very purpose of my being there. That is why the Armed Forces Special Powers Act has been enacted. It empowers and enables the army to do its business. It enables the armed forces to do its business. So we have to understand that. That's the first thing. Okay. Now there's a thing that you'll ask me, look, how was it brought about? In this, you have very important thing which people don't understand and people forget or don't know is that the first thing before you call the army in is that the state government has to declare the area as a disturbed area. It is that the area is disturbed and that the state then needs the armed forces. And then the state has to requisition the central government. Right? Of course, all this goes on parallelly. It also does the requisition to the local military authorities. But the central government has to okay deployment of the army or the armed forces in that area for specific tasks. So, unless that happens, the army doesn't get deployed. Thereafter, it becomes incumbent on the state government and the central government to protect the army from individual problems. Right? And there's also, like I said earlier, when the army goes in, we go in there with a whole lot of commandments. We just don't go in there and start blowing people up or arresting people up. No, we don't do that. Everything is done with a reason. If it had not been done with a reason, terrorism in Punjab or J&K or for that matter Northeast wouldn't have gone down. In fact, we are the only army in the whole world who has completely squashed, terrorism repeatedly. Look what's happening between Hamas and Israel.
Right.
Every second day there is a problem. Now it's a mega problem. And it's been going on for the past 70 years. Look at us. We had a problem in Punjab. We finished it off. It's coming back, but still Punjab is not a disturbed area. The army doesn't have the authority to go and act till the state declares it. So things are normal. Kashmir is a problem. It will continue, but we'll come to that a little later. Entire Assam was a disturbed area at one point of time. It's no more there. Mizoram, completely peaceful. Nagaland, peaceful. Look at Manipur, things have gone back, but things will. There, the Armed Forces Special Power Act is in force, and that's what enables people to act. So this is the broad understanding of the Armed Forces Special Power Act and how it is imposed. So the next question on this.
Yes. So the question that I have is, we talked about that one instance where this guy was tied, and then there was something else that happened around the same major, and the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir calls up the Defense Minister and asks for some sort of an exemption to try this person, even though AFSPA is in place. So such exemptions, I'm not going to go into the merits of the case, General Ravi Shankar. The thing is, such exemptions, are they given after due consideration? What are the points that would make them to say, okay, go ahead and prosecute?
Look, it's up to the government. The state government also doesn't have the power to proceed against the army. The state government can give it to the central government. The central government, more importantly the Ministry of Defense, sits down, takes the whole story into consideration. It takes into consideration under what circumstances a particular incident has happened, what are the repercussions of doing it vis-a-vis not doing it, and then the overall state of disturbance in that area, and the past record of that individual, past record of that area. All things are considered. It is not as if it is just giving a blanket sanction. There have been cases where people have violated the basic tenets of operating in counter-insurgency area, and there have been the army itself has come forth and said, please proceed against him. Right? Army themselves have said, this man is at fault based on the internal code of inquiry, and say, please proceed against him, let him face the due course of law. Right? So there's a difference between institutional response and an individual response, and my experience is the army is very conscious of doing the right thing. In my own experience, I've always told my Jawans, don't expect me to protect you if you do the wrong thing. There's no question. There's no question of you are going murdering someone and then shooting off someone. Don't be trigger happy. Don't thieve. You're not robbing others. This is not a war zone. This is your countrymen and your people, and everything is yours. You don't destroy people wantonly. You don't kill people wantonly. You're not interested in results. There are no results in this whole game. The result is that the people should be happy. At the end of the day, the people should be happy. So that is the thinking when these cases are evaluated. So I hope that answers your question.
It does.
I'd like to add one important thing about the Armed Forces Special Power Act. A lot of people say, look, Kashmir is quiet, why didn't we take it off? Manipur is, like this. Would it have been better if you had taken it off, or things like that? One has to be careful. There's no hurry in taking the Armed Forces Special Power Act off, because you take this, act off, or rather, you don't take the act off. You have to declare the state as normal and not disturbed. Till such time the state government feels that the area is disturbed, until such time that the army is required, the state government feels that the situation could go out of control, it's worthwhile to keep them there and with the Armed Forces Special Power Act in place. For example, take the example of Kashmir. It's still continuing the Armed Forces Special Power Act, but it's limping towards normalcy, slowly returning to normalcy. At least the Kashmir Valley doesn't have too many incidents at all. Right? The army is virtually in the barracks, it's just maintaining its grid. That developing that grid is important. Getting intelligence is important. Getting the communications through is important. Getting to know the people is important. Because if that grid is disturbed and broken, to re-establish the grid will take decades. It's taken so many decades. It's a sheet anchor. It's the foundation of your counter-terror or counter-insurgency operations or counter-militancy operations. That cannot be broken. To maintain that, you need to continue with the Armed Forces Special Power Act. So like today in Kashmir, the army is not active. Army is more focused on the line of control. And that's one of the reasons why you see a few incidents happening. The army is not out on the street. We left it to the police. But if the army has to step in, it can. The legal enablement is there, the framework is there, everything is there. But even now, notwithstanding the few incidents which have happened in the past 5-6 months, I still feel we need to be restrained. Don't let the army in. Don't take unnecessary steps to upset the balance which we have achieved. These are things bound to happen. In Kashmir, just again going ahead on Kashmir only, there were times in Kashmir where there used to be 4 to 5 incidents every day. Today you're talking of one odd incident once in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe 2 incidents in 2-3 days, which has happened in Kulgam and Kathua recently. Nothing to get upset about. You're dealing against a determined enemy in Pakistan who will do all these things. You have to be patient. And actually, when these incidents happen, it just reinforces the fact that you can't take out the AFSPA in a hurry. You have to have a larger view of the whole story, because normally a lot of people, the human rights specialists and those overground workers, all of them paint as if AFSPA is a draconian act.
Right.
It's not draconian by any stretch of imagination. Right? They paint it in such a manner to make it look draconian so that the armed forces are incapacitated, because that suits their story. But that's what I thought I wanted to put across about AFSPA. Any other issue?
No, thank you so much, General Ravi Shankar. And viewers, please like, share and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Namaskar.